We've been advised that the audio will work for recording, but may not be the best. So I will try to do what the nuns taught me, which is to enunciate. Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to the May 9th, 2022 Metropolitan Traffic and Parking Commission meeting. If you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Traffic and Parking Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Ask for an approval of today's agenda. We have a first. Second. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Approval of the minutes of the April 11th, 2022 meeting.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second, please? We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
They've been approved. Approval of the consent agenda. Please note that items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda. There is one item on the consent agenda today. All right, I will read it. It is to authorize a change in hours for the existing loading zone at 1414 Clinton Street from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. requested by Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery. Is there any discussion?
To approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
The item has been approved. Okay. The next item on our agenda is the smart parking contract update. And Ms.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Hello. How is everyone?
Yes, that is fine. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Oh, thank you. Do I need to start all over, or did y'all hear me fine?
If you don't want to start over, great.
Okay, I will. Sorry. Excuse me, I didn't realize I had to hit a button. Good afternoon, Diana Alarcon. I'm the director over the Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure. As you are aware, I've been coming every month for the last few months, just giving you updates. And today I want to give you a little bit more information of where we are with the upcoming parking contract with Laz Parking. So I've had a chance to meet with a few of y'all, but I have a few more meetings to have one-on-one to go into more detail of exactly what the contract covers. I also want to share with you that the contract is still in draft form. We still have a few things that we need to iron out, but I would say the meat and potatoes of the contract as a whole is pretty much done. But we do want to make sure we have a very thorough contract. So I'm going to highlight those things for y'all today. But in one of my meetings, I was asked, hey, we've been asking for a map of where our meters are at and all of that. So that's what you have in front of you right here. This is actually a map that we have. We have one of downtown of all of the locations of where we actually have a meter. As we begin the new parking program, program with replacement of the multi-space meters, we will be focusing on what meters we currently have on the street today. So what you see in this map, that's going to be our focus. And typically, we'll remove all the single-space meters, and we'll be installing one multi-space meters for as many single-space meters are on that block. As well as we're going to be also putting up QR codes. So as many of y'all may be familiar, when you go into a private garage today, you actually go in and you put on your picture phone camera, you take it, and the QR it pops up and asks for your information. You enter your information, including your credit card and your license plate number, and as well as your time that you want, and it'll automatically charge you. So we will have a very similar system as well throughout our street network. So it's a really exciting opportunity. It's moving us into a contactless business in the parking program. Next slide, please. So I just want to go over some terms of the contract with y'all. This is a 5-year contract. It is going to be a management fee. So I think there was confusion the prior contract when this came before this board. It was actually a lease agreement. That is not what we're proposing at this time. We're actually proposing more of a fee management fee structure where they will be actually paid based on that service that they're providing us. So it's a little bit different. And it's also going to have some performance measures tied to it that they will have to meet. There will be an opportunity also for them to generate an additional management fee, and this again is going to be some much stronger key performance indicators that they actually have to meet as well. A very important part of this is all our revenue that we're collecting from the parking program will be deposited into Metro Nashville account. They will not be keeping any of our funds. It'll all be going directly into Metro Nashville's accounts. We will be providing them with 3 months of operating expenses up front so that they could actually be able to operate the business. They'll have to, by the 10th of the month of the following month, provide us with the P&L of the services and the work and everything that was done. That's what we would sign off and then reimburse, but they'll have a 3-month working operating fund to work off of. We can cancel this with notice. So I just want to make that very clear. We will be purchasing multi-space meters. The meters will be designed to take credit cards and bills. We are getting away from coins. And many reasons. One is it's a very labor intensive and the banks charge us a lot of money to count coins. So that's why we're moving away from it. It is my hopes that the majority of our business as we move through the parking program will be in credit cards versus even bills. Because that is, again, the most contactless type of business that we can operate. You will also have an additional payment option through a QR code, which I spoke about, and we will be using electronic citation management system, and that will be done in collaboration with an extended enforcement staff. So that's something that's been long in needing in the overall parking program. So those are some really big highlights. Next slide, please. So just want to kind of outline where we are at with the fee structure right now. Again, this is a management fee structure. It is not a lease deal. Year 1 is going to be $60,000. Year 2 would be $75,000. Year 3 would be $90,000. Year 4, $105,000, and year 5 would be $120,000. And then every year, if they hit
question.
those, yes, sir.
Clarification. Is that per month or per year?
Per year.
Per year.
Per year, sir. Yes, sir. Right. And then they can have the ability to generate an additional $30,000, but that's based on hitting those key performance indicators. One thing I just real quickly want to, and I've accidentally left this off the slide and I meant to include it, there is a guaranteed $2 million that they have to generate for us. So all of this will be based on them hitting that $2 million mark. I just want to put that out there as well. I accidentally left it off. When I was doing the presentation, I thought about it, but then now I'm looking at it, I'm like, dang it, I left the $2 million off. So I want you to know that's one of the first and foremost performance indicators that they have to hit. Next slide, please. So I really focused in on the schedules. There is actually, there's not 15, but there's different schedules in the back that I kind of want to focus on because I think this is really more about what is the context and the importance of the agreement, the contract itself. So Schedule 1 is actually meter parking system contracts. So these are the contracts that we will have with them. It was part of their proposal process with us. That will be included in Schedule 1. Did I say that correctly, Terry? Perfect. Schedule 2 is going to be operating standards. Now, I think this is a really important schedule because we are actually really starting the parking program now. We have a lot of operating standards, but it's based on limited operations and single space meters. So they will actually be having to put together operating standards for the entire system. So how multi-space meters run, how we collect, all the financial side of it, as well as the citation management, how that works in collaboration with the court system. Everything will be built into this schedule too. One thing I just want to remind the commission is that this is something that is going to be very fluid. We're going to have a set starting. We'll be starting with set standards, but we're going to grow those standards as we build up the parking program. So we'll have set standards, but this will be something that'll constantly be growing, be very fluid with the actual program itself. Schedule 3 will be the meter parking system assets. So that's the total assets that we're going to have tied to the parking program as a whole. Schedule 5 is going to be our parking fees, which is what I just shared with y'all now. Schedule 7 is special events. So as you are aware, we have quite a bit of special events that occur in our city. So we will be listing those in Schedule 7, and that way they know going into this agreement, they're well aware these are the special events that may shut the roads down, which means meters may be shut off, which is going to be something that will not be part of that $2 million requirement. If we end up adding special events above and beyond what we are providing in this contract, they'll be able to take that off of the $2 million because it's not fair to penalize them when we didn't share that up front. But it's a pretty inclusive special event list now. Schedule 10 is going to be our capital improvements. That's going to be the meters we're going to purchase, the software we're going to purchase, the citation management system, the handhelds, all of that. We will have an entire list of every single bit of equipment we're going to be purchasing. Schedule 11 is our business plan. Now, they do have 30 days to provide me with the business plan. So from date of contract signed, they have 30 days to give a business plan because part of that business plan is going to be the purchasing of the equipment, having it installed, getting it set up, getting training, all of that. And they'll have to put it together a very comprehensive plan. And they really can't do that until they pull that trigger of ordering the equipment from day one. But 30 days out from the date of signature, they have to provide us a business plan, and that's how it's spelled out in Schedule 11. Schedule 12 has performance objectives in it, and that's already established, and that's part of those performance measures that we're requiring them to provide us to meet and receive their annual fee structure. So that'll be very important. And this is also going to be very fluid. We will be massaging this as we're moving through the program. We're, with technology and opportunities, as we get better at it, we're going to have a chance to actually have stronger performance measures. So I'm looking at tweaking this as we go through the program as well over the years. Schedule 13 is going to be our key performance indicators. So I talked about that additional 30,000. We've set some pretty specific standards that they have to meet to be able to get that 30,000, and that's what will be reflective in Schedule 13. Schedule 14 is going to be the lease of the premises. So they're actually going to be leasing some property from us to be operating their business. And just as part of the standard, they have to provide them with the lease. From my understanding, it'll be $1 because remember, whatever we charge them is going to end up on our operating statement. We're paying for it anyway. So we're going to make it significant, but we need to show that and reflect it so that we have everybody properly covered and managed, is a good way to put it. And then Schedule 15 is a fee structure for employees for special events. We're challenged every time we have some of these big special events with not having enough employees. So we were able to say, hey, give us a fee structure if we wanted to use some of their employees to help us with the special event. They would be able to bill us back at that set rate that they've established, and that's what you'll find in Schedule 15. So that's really above and outside, but it is a definite need we have, and as we grow the parking program, that'll become a stronger need as well. Next slide. So I wanted to kind of give you some pictures of the equipment. So this is what a standard pay station would look like. And like I said, we would actually have one per block. We would not have one per space. It looks like this. Someone would walk up and actually put in their license number, their information. They would be able to pay by credit card or cash off of this. And then when the license plate recognition comes through, they're going to be scanning the tag number. It'll match up automatically to that license plate number the individual put in. Yes, ma'am.
And it takes bills. Does it get changed, or do we need to put exactly like a $5 bill or a 20 or?
We will have to have a consideration adjusting the rates to have a flat number. So, for example, if we're charging $1.25 now, we may either go up to $2 or down to $1 because we're not able to give coins back. But we will be able to give bills back. So we can give $1 back. So if somebody puts 20 in and they're only buying $6, they'll get $14 back. You're welcome. We are going to recommend, though, exact change. It just makes it simpler. But again, there's credit card options. Can you go back one more? I'm sorry. And then the slide on the bottom left, I just wanted to show you what's as another option that will be available with this equipment will be a text. So if you actually go in and you sign up and you pay for it, whether it's through the QR system or online, if you put that information in, it'll send you a text saying your time's about to expire so that you can have the option to pay for additional time so that you don't risk receiving a citation. And I shared that because this is a great tool, and it's one that I think our guests and our residents would really find very valuable. I just also want to share that if someone parks in a 2-hour spot, 2-hour max, and they hit their 2 hours, they're not going to get a text asking for additional time because they've hit the 2-hour max. What I do not have up here in the equipment is the citation management equipment because we're still deciding between two vendors of which ones we're going to be moving forward with. But once I have that, I'll bring that information back forward to you. But we will be selecting citation control. There'll be handhelds. It'll also have a back office system as well. And we are working right now with the courts on how we set all of that up. So that's the only reason why I don't have that equipment here to share with y'all today. And then
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sir.
I guess we're starting out with static pricing.
Yes.
Okay. So does the system have scalability or flexibility if there was ever dynamic pricing based on demand?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It does.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's why I put that one slide up there where it shows kind of innovation. I think what I like about that is you can see we can partner with Find a Bike. We can partner with Find a Scooter. We can partner with this machine actually sharing a lot of information. So it's really great. This is going to be really some great technology that's going to be able to connect with a lot of our other systems that we currently have throughout the city. So I'm really excited about the innovation and the technology we'll be able to bring forward, including dynamic pricing if we move in that direction. Next slide. So I wanted to provide somewhat of a timeline for y'all. It is my hope that we'll have this contract executed by July. And that'll start the time clock for them. By that, it's about a 12-week lead time for the purchasing of the equipment and having it delivered. So we anticipate that we'll have the equipment in by November and have it all installed by January and actually have the program up. We'll also then be coming back in February for some recommendations that'll be above and beyond what we are currently operating in today's parking program. A few things I just want to add in this conversation. That February recommendation also lines up very well with where we'll be with Connect Downtown, which is a really important study that we have going on about how the best use of the curbs. So I'm really excited we'll tie that in together. Also, between November and January, given that we do have some places where we ask for $1.25 and we're not going to be giving coin change back, we will be coming with a request to either adjust the price up or down so that when we actually are installing the equipment, we're doing it so that it works very seamlessly in the field for our guests and for our residents. So, and I anticipate that after that, I'll be back before you, probably if not every month, every other month, talking about improvements in the program as we move forward and we learn more, and the technology helps us really define our operations better. So with that, I'll take any additional questions, and thank y'all so much for your time.
Commissioners, yes. Mr. Tubb.
I had the same problem.
Look at legal over here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all the updates. I did glance at the draft that we received via email. I did notice that some of the schedules were kind of left blank with notes saying, hey, we're going to update this as we have more meetings. So are we to expect those updates to be provided to us via a new draft agreement?
Yes,
every
sir.
time y'all make updates to it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. And then just to follow up, within your timeline of wanting to execute in July, when do you think we'll have a kind of like a final draft? What's your
Well,
ballpark?
I would say the draft that we're at now is pretty much, other than the finally, like filling in the blanks is pretty much what we're at. But I think the draft contract itself is pretty much set, wouldn't you say, Teresa and Terry? There is a few tweaking, but it's pretty set. I mean, but we do need to update some of the schedules, and that's finalizing some of the language that will go in there. But that's why I felt it was important that I kind of defined and laid it out for y'all. It's not going to be too far from what was explained today at all.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Yes. Commissioner Woods.
Thank you for all the information. Do you know in the business plan if any minority female-owned contractors and vendors are going to be a part of this process?
I do not know, but I will have that conversation with them. But I will tell you, most of the installation we will probably be doing ourselves. So, for example, we are collaborating with them that if we have to change out a pad to have install the multi-space meters, and staff will actually be doing that. My staff will be doing that. And then their staff would actually come in and actually, with Flowbird, who is actually the vendor, would actually be installing it. So, but we can put that out there for consideration. But I do not have that answer today, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other? Yes, council member.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. I guess I need to pull this closer to myself. There we go. You had mentioned the various schedules that are open and the deliverables subsequent to the execution of the contract. So the operating standards, the business plan you mentioned specifically was like a 30-day deliverable from execution of contract. The performance objectives you spoke to is having some fluidity. I guess will there be documentation and whether in this draft or otherwise, there's the actual kind of performance of meeting the initial scope of the business plan, the operating standards. I mean, that's a lot of things that are still open for executing a contract. So I'm wanting to know how you're going to kind of put those expectations in writing.
So today in the draft, we actually do have the performance objectives already in there. The key performance indicators is not in there yet. So I'm hoping we'll get that fine-tuned this week. The contract side of it will be, we still have to make the final decision on the citation management because part of their contract will be that Schedule 1. So we have to pull all that together. So I will share a lot of that, I think, including the operating standards that we do have set up and established will all be part of the contract and will be in there. But again, I think it needs to be fluid because as we build out the program, we're going to need to be adding a lot of operating standards. So where we're at today will be provided, but that's not where I anticipate us to stay at all. But yes, ma'am, we will be putting it in there. A lot of it is actually done. We just didn't have it ready at the time that we took this and shared it out with the commission.
Okay. Any other? Yes, Council.
So regarding the capital aspects of this program, so the kiosk that you showed, with this being a management contract, are they suggesting this particular capital, this particular vendor, is that inextricably linked to the management contract? I mean, so through the contract negotiation process, it sounds like they've made a proposal of preferred vendors, but I just, capital and management, it's sort of operational capital assets. And so I just want to kind of understand how those are linked or not linked. Right. And from a funding perspective, what we have already put in, whether it's a capital spending plan or we contemplated through operational budget, how are we arriving at purchasing all these kiosks and doing the infrastructure work that you said staff would do for various pads or spatially putting them out? How are we going to execute that capital piece?
So on the capital side, just a little bit of information. When their proposal was put forth, they did provide recommendations on the capital equipment. And we actually required them to do a presentation to staff to give us a chance to be able to review it and ask questions. And so we actually got a full-blown presentation of Flowbird. We also they made a recommendation of a citation management company at that time, which I did not accept. So that's why we are still reviewing additional citation management companies. We have it narrowed down to 2, and it is just a matter of the court and I having the conversation about what we feel is the best fit for both of us. And then we'll proceed forward. They're both good citation management companies, so I think we'd be happy with either one. I'm always looking for the one that's going to provide me the best technology at the best price. And then the court is really also looking forward to make sure that it's going to function very well with their current operating system. But all of the capital improvement equipment that's been recommended, we required a full presentation, which we had, and we approved it before we moved forward with it. So I was really comfortable with what they did and the technology and everything that they were recommending. It was in line with what we envisioned taking our parking program. So from the capital side, we had that. They will be purchasing the equipment on our behalf, but it will be we will be reimbursing them. We do have money in our operating budget to cover the capital expenses. So what will happen is they'll make after the contract's done, this will be part of the contract. They'll make the purchase, and as the equipment comes in and they get invoiced, they'll bill it to us through our monthly operating budget, and we'll actually pay them back out of our spending plan that we actually already have set up in our budget. So that's how that's going to work on that side.
Just real quick, and the city owns the equipment.
The city will own the equipment.
Okay.
Yep, and also that's why I was very, very particular about, I wanted to make sure that all the dollars that are collected from the equipment went into a city account and not to the vendor. So it'll be in our account. That's why we're giving them 3 months operating funding, so that they have money to operate, because they are hiring staff. We're hiring additional enforcement. We are hiring the office administration. We have to hire technicians. That has to be hired, and that's going to be under their purview, under the management agreement. That's where their operating expenses will be paid from, and then they'll actually share that back every month, and then we'll give them renew back up their fund balance so it never hits zero.
Okay.
Because we're bringing in all the revenue into our bank account. I like the money to be in our bank.
Yes.
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
In the technology section, I understand that this is a draft still. There's a paragraph that states that Metro Parking and Traffic Commission can, that the residential parking permit process and curbside management, that could actually be turned over to them. What is that process? Do you see that as a part of this overall, or will it make it to the final draft?
I see it is in the draft, and it will stay in there. But of course, as the curb management program that we're currently doing, Connect Downtown, that's going to be something we'll be bringing back before this board for consideration. That'll be part of the recommendations that I mentioned in February. Kind of all lines up. That'll come back before that. That's why we have that language in there, is that we have to bring all of that back to y'all for approval on parking permit program, rate changes, hours of enforcement. Every bit of that has to come back before you. So as those opportunities and recommendations come back, we will be back before this board for approval of those recommendations, so we can go out and implement them.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
The other thing is just an experience that I've had with the QR code in another city. And it was linked to a rental car that I had. And about a year later, I was charged for parking in LA at the same time that I was in Nashville.
Wow.
So the company took care of it.
Right.
That was a glitch that I could see happening. A lot of people come to Nashville and have rental cars. So just to kind of put that on the radar.
No, thank you. I will actually, when I get back to home, I'm going to get my pen and make a note so I can make sure we don't have the same boo-boo.
It can happen.
Thank you.
All right. I have 2 questions. They're kind of unrelated, but
Okay.
one is at the last Traffic Commission meeting, we approved a contract extension for the downtown partnership, but it was just a short for another like 18 months.
Yes, sir.
So, because this draft is the management company is going to assume the the operations, or whatever the correct term is, for the parking garages that the city currently owns, that we currently are contracting with Downtown Partnership, and what's the impact of the revenue of changing that? And then my second unrelated question is, I think this commission, without speaking for everyone, would probably like to have an annual report every year on the anniversary date, so we can review the implementation, performance standards, are those being met, what things can we do? So I don't know if that needs to be in contract, or is that just something we need to specify that we would like out of this commission. Again, I don't want to speak for other commissioners, but I sense, based on my years of experience, that all of us would like to get those kind of reports on a regular basis.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the contract, there is the ability to add the parking garages in the future. It is my hope that we'll bring the whole parking program together, and that would include the garages as well. As far as what that revenue structure would look like, I cannot speak to that today, but I certainly will be bringing that information forward to this board as we move in that direction. And we have had that discussion with the Downtown Partnership about, that's why we actually set it up as 18 months, with them also understanding that we're going to be looking at bringing the garages back in-house. We're very grateful for that partnership, because in the past we really haven't had a parking program, but now we're going to. So I feel we'll be in the appropriate place that we could manage it and provide a good revenue stream for the city as well. So to that one, to your second question, it is actually already listed in the contract that they have to provide us with an annual report as well as quarterly reports. So it is our intention that we will be back before this board annually to provide you with where the performances are at, as well as also any changes that they would be recommending, because part of their annual report or any recommendation and changes to the parking program, the way we're approaching business, technology, whatever is at that time. So yes, sir, we will make sure we bring that back before this board, and also to stay very transparent for the public. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, council member.
Chair Green, I think my question is maybe for Ms. Costonis, just for the public's understanding for council. So we have before us for presentation today a draft contract. And so kind of what is the next step for this commission? Are we recommending approval of a final contract to council? And, you know, how's that going to work as far as the kind of transparency to the community of the final contract language and so forth?
Right. So today, as I understand it, is really just an informational update. But the commission will certainly have to approve the final version of the contract because the chair of this commission will actually be the signatory on behalf of Metro to that contract, because of the way the charter provides that this body is actually, you know, the manager of parking management contracts on behalf of Metro. And then it will also have to go to council for approval.
Right. It was my hope we would have the contract finalized and ready, but we didn't. But I felt it was important to share it with the commission so you know what's in front of us. But like I said, I feel like the meat and potatoes are pretty much here. We just need to fine tune a few things and have that ready. And I feel like at the next meeting, we'll be 100% ready.
All right. Any other comments? You actually asked my next question thank you. All right. Anything else, commissioners? Thank you. All right. Thank you, Ms. Alcorn. All right. Excuse me. Did somebody out in the audience raise their hand?
I did. I was just curious as far as whenever I heard you say the license plate reading, is that an integral part of this?
Yes.
It is?
Yes.
Okay. All right. The next item.
Would there be a way to move away from this program? Should LPR, because whenever you're talking about LPR from a governmental agency rather than a private entity, I think that's going to throw up red flag.
Okay.
Well,
What?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, license plate reading.
All right. Excuse me just for a minute. If we're going to, I think today was an update, and so I think when we have our contract review, we'll actually state that we're having a contract review, and we'll invite public comments and things. And I think that would be the appropriate time to really deal with that at that time. Otherwise, we'll get sidebarred here. But we want to hear from folks at the appropriate time. Okay? So we do need to make sure that on the agenda, when we're ready to review the contract, that it's very explicit that we are reviewing to approve a contract so that everybody in the city knows. Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda, because it relates to some below it, is the Connect Downtown authorize a temporary pause on new curb utilization approvals.
Chairman Green, we have a short presentation.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. Who is the presenter, please?
Me. I'll be running us through these slides.
Thank you.
I hope to be very brief. It is actually a summary of some of the things that we shared last time as far as the overall, the Connect Downtown, but it also includes some additional inventory updates and some other things that we'd like to share as well. Oh, and I'm done. Thank you. No. I think, Corby, this might be the last slide. Do you have?
Chair Green, just point of order, I apologize.
Yes,
Under
go ahead.
old business, I understood that you took the smart parking contract update, item C first, but we had item B under old business.
I think under the revised agenda, I think unfortunately the paper copy is not the revised agenda.
Okay.
The revised agenda we are following,
Okay.
which was...
Got it. So we moved item B to
Yes, that was an indefinite deferral.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Yes, Mr. Freeze.
I'm waiting for our presentation to come up. There we go. So this is an update and a little bit of an overview of what we provided last time, but I'm going to end with what our staff recommendation is when we talk about authorizing a temporary pause on permanent valet and loading zones. So go ahead, Corby, you can switch to the next one. Not switching. So I'll say this. Not switching at all, Corby. You might have to run it if you're running it from you might have to download it to run it. There we go. There we go. So who's involved? These are our partners with our Connect Downtown study. We are working hand in hand with WEGO, TDOT, and the Nashville Downtown Partnership. They are part of our engagement as well with the Downtown Partnership, but we have several technical committees that are together and actually assembling to actually do some outreach and actually good data collection as we go through here. You can go ahead and click on to the next one. So just a short overview, go ahead and click on to the next one. So from a planning context, you can see all the various plans that we're working on to bring in harmony and bring together with this Connect Downtown study. We have the Metro Nashville Transportation Plan, which, was 2 years ago that we got out. The Vision Zero Plan, the Walk and Bike Update, In Motion, Better Bus, Envision East Bank, Restoring Second Avenue, Sustainability Plan, and Downtown Traffic Study. These are all coming together in concert. And this out here on the right, you can see our vision statement. Our vision statement really is to a multimodal system for all that offers choice and better connects neighborhoods, residents, and businesses, places they need to and want to go in a safe manner. So I just want to encourage that. So we have been experiencing unprecedented growth. I know everyone knows that on the commission here. So we have from 2011 to 2021, 14,000 new residents downtown, about 105 million square foot of office space under construction, and we have about 5 million people attend downtown events each year. So you can go ahead and click on over to the next one, Corby. So geographic constraints, we are constrained. Here's just a snapshot. You can see a shot down Second Avenue here where we have a lot of constraints. Right away is limited. Our topography, water, of course, with the river and interstates are challenging. Modes and uses are increasing, and demand on the curbs are expanding. And ownership is complicated when it comes to curb management. So we are really trying to address a diverse set of interest when we're going through this Connect Downtown study. The interest of business owners, residents, employees, the visitors that come to our city, event managers, sports interests, service providers, transportation companies, and agencies, other partnering agencies like TDOT, for example, and others that we work with hand in hand with, like WeGo. So this just gives you an overview of the study area that we're actually going to be requesting the pause for. So 10 plus neighborhoods, 6,328 streets covering 405 miles, 31 WeGo routes, 13 miles of bike facilities, 2,000 parking meters in the study area, 94 miles of sidewalk, and 13% walking commute mode share. So you can go ahead and click over, Corby. So what's included in our study? These are the bullets. We are talking about the transportation issues and opportunities in downtown Nashville today. A lot of community outreach is already planned, but also have already started. Goals and evaluation tools that will help us guide our decisions about priorities, projects for people walking and rolling, biking and scooting, taking the bus and driving and parking, and better connections to businesses, communities, destination schools, homes, and family and friends. And then really what we want to get run through the traffic and parkings are programs and policies to support people traveling downtown. We're going to be talking quite a bit about that, and we foresee actually coming back to this Traffic and Parking Commission frequently throughout the life of the study. So funding and partnership opportunities is also a portion of our study. I get really geeked out, and I know I said this last time in the simulation. We're actually doing an operational analysis that's actually going to do simulations where we have micro simulation of all the operations of downtown in these connected neighborhoods. So I really, as a traffic engineer, that excites me to get to look at that and to see how we can optimize our operations. So you can go ahead and click over to the next one. So this is our schedule. We showed this last time. So we are going through the projects and programs and policy right now, scenarios and trade-offs, August through November. Recommendations and costs are going to be December to January timeframe. So that's when we're actually going to get the recommendations from this study that we're actually going to look. We're not going to wait till we finalize the plan to move forward with our recommendations. We're actually going to move forward with the recommendations through this traffic and parking, ones that are actually the purview of this commission. So then go ahead, Corby. So parking and load. I just want to give you an inventory here. So these are our existing conditions. We have 120 blocks with parking, 2 blocks with time-limited parking, 2,000 parking meters. You saw that on an earlier slide, and 186 parking lots and garages downtown. So you can click over. So loading zones downtown, we have 52 loading zones downtown and 32 passenger loading and valet zones downtown. This just gives you the overview of that. And then downtown, walking and biking and rolling. Downtown lacks safe connected bike networks. You can see here the disjointed appearance of bike networks downtown. That's something that we've heard frequently from our biking community is the connectivity of our bikeways downtown. So that's something that's of big focus with this Connect Downtown study. So using micro and shared mobility, people are using those services more and more. You can see the density matrix here that we've put together based on that inventory where we have the most usage of those micro mobility components. And here you see that clearly we have a large amount of ridership with these micro mobility features. You can click, I'm trying to spit it out, sorry. There are 194 bus stops, but only 1 transit center in the study area. So you can see here all the bus stops that we have inventoried within the study area. In the next, go ahead and click over to the next one. And driving and parking, loading zones are at a premium. You can see here just a Coke truck parked outside one of our businesses downtown here. There's just not a lot of great opportunity on our curb space for loading zones during business and then throughout the day. You can go ahead and click over. So what we are requesting as our staff recommendation is to request the authorization from Traffic and Parking Commission for a temporary pause on new curb utilization approvals. This pause would allow for completion of the study recommendations for future approvals. So we want to bring that to that. And like I said, we are working and looking at that now. We hope to have that December 2022 to January 2023 timeframe. However, we are looking to actually beat that date and come to the commission before that period. But that's what our current tracking is. So this is what we wanted to propose. Some background. You can go ahead and click over to the next. So in 2021, curb use applications. So we received 8 last year for loading zone request, and we received 6 for valet zone requests last year. We're currently averaging about a 1.5 per meeting that we get a request for. So that's kind of what we're looking at as far as the current load of requests that we see. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Freeze. Appreciate it. Questions, commissioners? Yes, council member.
Thank you, Mr. Freeze. I appreciate all that data and seeing all that. I definitely want to look at those slides again. I was up here taking pictures of the pictures for my reference. I appreciate you coming back and kind of sharing the context for this and the desire for this pause or moratorium or however we're referring to it. But I guess aside from this presentation, I guess there's sort of the very practical matters, right, of people who are in the development process and, whether their touch points have been at, the planning department, years ago as they conceived, laying out their site, or at NDOT, even probably some people touching that even when it was still called Public Works. So I think what I'm wanting to hear or understand is very practically, if you are here, what this means for you. And what does it mean if you contemplated coming before this commission within this 9-month pause? How are we going to address that fairly and transparently? Is it just nobody ever for 9 months? Or... right, I get a little nervous when it's like, oh, okay, well, this one's sort of important, so we're going to do that one, but we don't do it for others. So I'm wanting to understand very precisely, do we have a written kind of procedural plan for this?
So, yeah, our recommendation for staff for all future requests until we have this completion of the Connect Downtown study, we'll be able to refer till afterwards. If you're asking about, backing up with your question, you're asking about when is there a process in place? There are certain conditions that we will have to consider, like life safety issues, like public safety issues. And there's actually one today on the agenda that actually has to do with that. We actually have the federal courthouse that is actually opening, and they are asking for loadings, actually a no parking, removal of parking, and actually a valet zone in front of their facility to limit actually the space around there for public safety benefits for Homeland Security issues as well. So can you repeat the first part of your question?
With your permission, Chair, yeah. There's what's on our agenda today.
Yes.
And so you mentioned the federal courthouse. We also have the Four Seasons. There's a few other on here. I guess I'm just thinking about, fair warning for the development community.
Yes.
I just think anytime we have ambiguity, I am wanting to see, aside from this presentation, a document that is very specific that says, if this, then that, for these many months, what are the...
Understand.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. So I can say about what we have actually done as far as public outreach already as associated with this. I know that we have met with the Downtown Partnership and actually surveyed their membership. In addition, meeting with the Nashville Chamber of Commerce and actually having a presentation before we actually came and presented this to the commission. That was what we wanted, the steps that we wanted to take to actually provide that notification so people aren't caught off guard by this. In addition to that, you asked what the impacts would be on businesses that are affected by this. It would not impact their construction. They could move forward with their construction. It's more on the operational side, day to day. They would not be able to have a permanent valet zone. It does not impact temporary approvals of management of the curb space related to special events and other things like that come out, that we actually go through the permitting process that does not actually come through this commission.
Commissioners, any other questions?
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear if the presentation to the CVC has been done already. Have you done that?
Presentation to what now?
To the CVC, the Nashville Convention and Visitors.
We have, yes.
Okay.
You're talking about the Chamber of Commerce?
The Convention and Visitors Bureau. That's what I thought you were saying.
No, it's the Nashville Chamber of Commerce.
The Chamber of Commerce. So
Yes.
that has.
That has happened, yes.
Okay.
Actually, Director Alicon actually provided that presentation to them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little uncomfortable without understanding what the public perception is to do a blanket moratorium without any sort of maybe even a temporary solution for businesses that may be very far along in the process. That's the piece of it that seems to me it's either all the way right now without having any sort of a way
Option.
for a business, to have an option.
Mr. Freed, could you discuss a little bit the temporary permits so that everyone's kind of clear about how those operate? Because
Yes.
a couple of years ago, when the commission was discussing some things related to valet zone, and, we were trying to put a little bit of a quote-unquote pause on those while we came up with a policy. During that period of time, we were in the midst of a pandemic, so the requests kind of dried up. But we have some new commissioners since then, and I know there's a process where businesses can obtain a temporary valet stand prior to a more permanent valet stand. So could you elucidate on that,
we can
please?
provide an overview of that. Actually, we have Rory. Actually, from our permitting office, actually handles that. But yes, we do actually have those requested submitted to us through our permitting office. They are analyzed as far as operationally how they will affect. We actually look at the traffic engineering has an opportunity to look at those and do an analysis of how those impact, and then they are granted on a part-time basis. Do you want to hear the entire process?
Commissioners?
I mean, I wouldn't say the entire process, but just a summary, because it sounds like they would be able to get a temporary.
So temporary permits are typically event-based. We have in the past before had longer-term temporary. We're subject those agreements as far as when they receive that temporary. If they violate provisions that are associated with that permit, we can revoke those permits in there. But yes, we have in the past granted temporary permits that allowed for operational analysis, during that period of time when they have a temporary permit.
Okay. I want to try to satisfy Commissioner's request for information. Yes.
I guess just to follow up on that, the question would be would someone's temporary permit allow them to have this during the moratorium that we have for the permanent?
That's correct. Yes.
But you briefly said is for special events.
That's
so
correct.
If somebody is, let's say we have someone from the community that's building a new structure that's going to require a new permit, is that quote unquote define the special event? No.
No. That is the same permitting process that we go through for lane closures, if that's what you're referring to. Lane closures or any obstruction of the right-of-way goes through that permitting process.
Okay.
Yes, Council Member.
Chair Green, so to Mr. Teffel's question about kind of, special versus temporary versus permit. I mean, I think as I've arrived on this commission, it was somewhat surprising to me that whether for valet permits or, once granted, that was kind of in perpetuity. And so I understand when it's a factor in the design of someone's facility, that having that certainty is important. But I wonder if rather than framing this as a pause or a moratorium, we might anticipate that within this time frame of the study, it would just be clear that if you are granted a valet, we reserve the right after further study for flow of traffic and transit and whatever, that this may need to change, right? So then it's sort of fair warning that this valet permit or otherwise is not issued kind of in perpetuity, but rather, within this time frame, given the context, the study that's going on, it's almost as though it's conditional, it's temporary. I mean, but that it's clear. The expectation is very clear. That's my concern.
Is your So the expectation is clear within when they're given a temporary permit, what that means, or permanent?
Correct. I think this commission would need to be clear that within the time frame of this study, if we were to consider, I mean, so there's colleagues, we could just take it completely off, like we're not considering any, right? Mm-hmm. The kind of an absolutist approach. Or, I mean, you mentioned life safety or special events, or, I mean, I think you could sort of tear it down and then say, okay, well, if we're granting it in a more typical scenario, it would then be temporary in some capacity, right? But explicitly saying that. Ms. Costonis, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I was just going to say that the valet permits currently are annual, so they're not in perpetuity. They're just for 1 year, and then they're renewed.
Mr. Rowan, would you mind stepping forward, please? And no, can you come to the microphone, please? And state your name for the record, please, so everybody knows who you are.
All right, got it. Okay, so typically what we do is if it's a temporary permit, it's just like for, let's say it's a one-off. I'm going to use an example like the Country Music Hall of Fame. They may have an event at the Hall of Fame. They want a valet on Fifth Avenue, or now it's Representative John Lewis Way South. So we would issue that with the limit, and we would look at it based on how many vehicles are going to take, how many valets they're going to employ, and what the time frame is, and if we have any other events. And if we can approve it, then they pay for a lane closure, but with the description there for a valet. And then we communicate that to the police department so they're aware of what's going on in case something else is going on in the downtown. But that's typically how we would do like a one-off, or like it's not a long-term facility like they just started a restaurant and they're going to start a valet. It's part of their plan, but it's not the same thing as that. And there is a limit because it's specific to that one date or the dates that they're going to do it. There's another one. It's Ruby. It's in a park. It's on Blakemore, and they sometimes do a valet there. And we really wouldn't let someone do a valet there typically during the day, but sometimes we have to do that because there's not parking facility. It is a metro inside of a park. So that's kind of how we handle it. And we've always worked with the police when we did the temporary valets, where if we had like a restaurant that wanted to start one, we would try it out, and then they would be notified, and then they would evaluate it based on everything else going on. And if it caused traffic issues with respect to them, then we would, it could be anything from the valets not having enough staffing to get the cars, and there's too many cars parked on the street, or they're not typically valeting, they're just parking them there. And so that's happened sometimes. So that's how we typically handle that. So, it's pretty much the same evaluation. There's a form that we use for that they fill out that, tells us what they're doing, how long, how far the parking lot is, how many cars are going to take, all that goes into it. And then, that would be how we would handle it.
So that piece of it would not be disrupted.
Right.
That is correct. It will not be disrupted.
So we're only talking about, and again, you shared with us that last year we only got six
valet zone requests, correct.
That's
eight loading zone requests.
Okay. So we're talking about just tabling that for the duration of the study.
That's correct.
And, this might be a dumb statement. Sometimes when I speak my brain, I speak what's in my head, I get in trouble. But I have to say this because it's what I'm thinking, and it might be really dumb, and I might get kicked out of this commission. But six. So we're saying six valet applications are going to disrupt this whole study? That we can't leave it open to accept 6 applications on average?
It's a good question.
It's a dumb question, but
no,
it's
kind
kind
of what I'm
thinking.
No question is a dumb question.
Because it just what we're saying sounds a lot worse than what it is, right? A moratorium, public, it sounds worse than what it is. But the reality is, we got to do this study, and there's not a lot of applications. Well, what is the effect?
So when you actually approve a valet zone, and it does change the flow of traffic in front of that business. So that is what we're concerned with, is actually the operations. And actually, we want to not we want to not grant permanent approvals for those, so we can actually decide strategically based on our analysis where those need to be, where the limitations of those zones and timing needs to be.
All right. Ms. Alcorn, if you could kind of speak to what is the rationale, which I think is what we're after. What is the rationale for basically putting a freeze into effect until whenever it is 6, 7, 8 months out?
Thank you very much. Diana Alarcon, Director of Transportation Multimodal Infrastructure. So the rationale is just that. And believe it or not, granting a valet, so you have a brand new restaurant that's maybe isn't a restaurant today, but it wants to be a restaurant, it wants valet, and it wants to put it out there, but it would actually is a disruption. It's very hard to give something and then take something away. So part of what the outcome of this study is to look at what is the best use of our curb from a valet perspective, from a loading, unloading, how we can maybe even have collaboration of valet companies working together. You know, the thought is you can drop your car here, you walk over here, you can call and get your car over there. So that's all going to be part of the conversation tied into this. And that's why we're just saying we really do not want to give any permanent valet or any permanent loading, unloading at this time. We want the analysis and study to be done, the simulation as Mr. Freeze had laid out in his study, so that if we give it and we have to take it away, that's very hard to do. And so temporary is one way of doing it. You know, so if a moratorium is something this board is uncomfortable and they want to do a temporary, but I found it much harder that if we say, okay, we're going to give this to you now, but oh, by the way, in 7 months, we may take it away. And this is why that's a little bit hard for a business to take on. And just remember, some of these valets that are being asked of now, they weren't necessary on the prior use. The uses of the downtown areas is changing, and they're saying they need valet. We have one street right now at peak time in the evening. You can't even get down the street because they're doing valet parking in the middle of a travel lane. And they also have valet parking on the curb on the other side. And we have construction going on. It's just, that's the reason why we have this congestion that's occurring in the downtown core. But not just in the downtown core, it's now flaring out. So the thought was, let us get through the study so we can have a very strategic approach and bring that back for recommendation. And so temporary is, again, temporary, but still it's very hard to give something and then take it back if it's not the right fit for how we should be using the curb. And the curb is there's a lot of demand on the curb right now, and we just really cannot meet everybody's demand, and that's part of the reason why we're doing the study. Thank you.
Council member.
So I think, you know, when we're speaking about this, you know, Chief Engineer Freeze, you used the word permanent, right? So there is kind of a, you know, yes, colleagues, technically it's annual, but, you know, the presumption has been in the past, if issued, it was, though maybe not technically in perpetuity, that was somewhat of a presumption. And so you're speaking to Director Alarcon, the, you know, concern around, given that the perception is that it's permanent, then it's hard to take it away. But I guess what I would say is that if you engage with it in awarding it, that it is conditional, and further, if we are enforcing the problematic ones today, I would say if there's somebody that has a valet permit that's conducting valet in a travel lane, then they should have their permit revoked. So I guess I understand that some of them are problematic now, but are they problematic because we don't enforce them? And if we set the level of expectation that something is conditional or temporary in the context of this study, and if it, you know, as in all valet permits, I think if they're not being conducted appropriately, they could be revoked. I just wonder if we were being more focused on the enforcement of the ones we have today, and anybody who is potentially caught without, you know, a sufficient warning understood that those were conditional, then if that's not perhaps a middle path.
So thank you for that question, Council Member. So we are enforcing. The one particular valet I spoke to was actually granted by this board for operation in the travel lane. And those, and that's part of the reason why we're doing the study, is because, you know, and I've heard this commission say that, well, how does this affect, if we grant this, how does it affect this? And in the past, there was really no comprehensive thought behind it. And that's what this study is going to bring to the table and allow us to really have that healthy conversation about what is the best use. And also, given what Mr. Freeze shared about where we were, 10 years to where we are today, has even put more demand on the curve as a whole. So we are doing the enforcement. We do and have shut down. I think, as Roy said, if someone is not having the appropriate number of staff and the cars are backed up, we will take and actually serve them and act on that. So we are doing the enforcement side. But there's a lot of past that has created the problems we have today. And please forgive me, I don't mean anything derogatory about that, but that's part of the reasons why we want to do the study. And we just felt like if we gave someone the authorization to run a valet, there is the expectation that they'll be able to continue it. And that may not really be in the best interest based on the outcome of what this study will show. There may be loading zones we've given in the past that do not make sense that we would want to push back on. I mean, we have places that people can and vehicles can go and unload, and they choose to do the street and not the alleyways or not the loading docks. And so that's part of this program that's going to also come back with recommendations and policies that we'll bring before this commission, because y'all will be the body that will be actually, saying yes or no. So we're going to need that in. And that's why I just feel it's really important to tie this all in together so we have a comprehensive look.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Woods, please.
I support this because it seems like we've gotten to the point in this city, it's like, I'll do it and ask forgiveness later. And it is a mess. And we could have made mistakes in the past with good intentions, but it's a mess, and I support this.
Okay. All right. Just real quick, I just want to say 2.5 years ago, we had a set of meetings about permit parking, valet stands, and parking meters. And we asked at every one of those for a map. And this is the first time I've ever seen a map. So we are making some progress, because you don't know what to manage until you know what it is you have to manage. So with that being said, is there a motion on this item, please?
Sorry, I was just wondering if there are members of the public that are here to speak to this. Am I speaking out of turn to say that? So
yes, thank you for. I was maybe moving things along.
Okay.
So.
And Chair, just point of order as well. I mean, the order of our agenda. I mean, we have items here today. Can you speak to what it would mean if we were to vote on this?
Yes, that was a question been popping around in my head. So what's the? Should we move to vote on this now, or should we wait to vote on this till after we hear these other items that have this impact, or does it matter?
Well, I mean, I think that's at the discretion of the commission, but it would make sense. I mean, you've approved your agenda, but you can change that, of course.
And thank you, Commissioners. So is there anyone here to speak to this item? You had stood up. Yes. Come forward and state your name for the record. And that's why we work together, to make sure that the chair doesn't keep moving stuff along too quickly, right?
I understand.
Thank you.
Chairman, this is actually a new business item. Here, if you want to know which one that is.
Okay. Are they actually here to speak about their new business item, or are they here to speak about the moratorium?
To speak on the moratorium.
Okay. So please state your name for the record, please.
Okay. My name's Doug Sloan. I live at 6354 Torrington Road.
Okay.
Here in Nashville.
My name's Catherine Bird. I'm with the Rutledge.
Okay.
I'm with Waller. Yes. A little bit of history. I'm former planning director for Metro before Director Kemp. And a project in particular that I will be speaking on today is the Four Seasons Hotel that's between 1st and 2nd Avenue. But before I get to that, city building is hard. It is very difficult to manage a city, and from a planning standpoint, to predict what a city's going to do. I'm sure all of you knew that we would go through this growth spurt that we've gone through over the last 10 years before it happened, right? I don't think anybody knew that we were going to see the growth spurt that we've just had. And so a lot of what you have to do in city building is you've got to build the plane while you're flying. And it's very difficult to do. And if you get the opportunity to land the plane and then repair it, well, that's great. But that doesn't happen very often. You have to deal with the situation you have in front of you and keep moving forward. I'm speaking against this because I do have concerns about a moratorium that is a blanket moratorium across the board when there are a wide variety of situations that exist out there. One situation that you're going to, that's not my case, but you're going to hear about later today, is the new federal courthouse and how the loading and the unloading and how they operate. That's a very unique situation that a moratorium doesn't allow the space for. The case that I do hope to get a chance to speak to you later about today really was born from a decision that I made and the Planning Commission endorsed. When this project, the Four Seasons project, came in front of me as the planning director, my goal was to not have any conflict points with pedestrians and vehicles as far as I could get on First Avenue. The city was building an amphitheater. They were building a park. There's huge open space right across the street from this project. And I wanted to push all the traffic onto Second Avenue and try to make that pedestrian friendly and where we could close it for events and not have to worry about can people get in or out of these buildings. And so now, as they're getting close to completion, there are no curb cuts from Siegenthaler Bridge all the way to KVB on First Avenue. Sounded like a great idea at the time from where I sat, but it turns out maybe not so great. One of the other ideas was that we were going to try to get Second Avenue back to, I'm sure if you've lived in this city very long, you've watched Second Avenue one way, one direction, one way, another direction, two ways. And one of the things that we saw as Broadway continued to get busier and busier was we should look at maybe coming here and seeing about Second Avenue between Broadway and KVB becoming two-way, which is the Pinnacle was built with that in mind as well. A large garage exit from their building is on Second Avenue with that anticipated. And so I did instruct them to go back to redesign their building. They had drives on First Avenue. Then after they tried the drives on First Avenue, and I said no, then they tried lay-by lanes, and I said no. And so they built it without anything. And so consequently, and we told them, we want you to activate the street. So we want restaurants, we want retail, we want all this on First Avenue, yet we're not going to give you any way to actually pull the cars in from there. And there were discussions about, hey, we'll get Second Avenue turned around. That'll help with your traffic coming out. And we'll work with you on our valet out in front, because we thought that would work at the time. And they built their building with that understanding, with those promises that we would do those things. Now, I'm not the planning director anymore. Y'all's current planning director is absolutely fabulous. I cannot say enough good things about her. And my experience with NDOT so far has been nothing but fantastic as well. Two organizations I think y'all should be very proud of having. I just worry about a moratorium that doesn't look at these different, the two examples that you have on your agenda today. A moratorium simply doesn't provide the space for those to be considered by this body. And that's what I would really request, that you allow that space to exist. And even if it's a one-year permit that allows them to exist while this study goes on, and then at the back end, the city and this body says that doesn't work, then we need to deal with that citywide. If it's not going to work here, it's probably not going to work in other places too, and the bad news will just have to be shared. As former planning director, I share bad news quite a bit with developers. It's just part of the gig.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan.
Thank you. I'm with the Rutledge. We're going to be the third-party operator restaurant at the Four Seasons. We're very excited to be a part of downtown Nashville and to be in this community. As Mr. Sloan stated, our building plans were conducted with the assumption that we would be able to have a valet lane in front of the building for customers to be able to access our restaurant. So when I was at the previous meeting last month and I heard the speak of the moratorium, as somebody that works with that business, I was obviously concerned. And, you know, especially since we had built the building in the way that we did based on prior conversations. And, you know, as he alluded to, I know things change. That's just the nature of a really, really popular, awesome city. But we do request that you take our application into consideration. If we are going to do this study, I think that if this one valet application, this one valet lane is going to cause that much of a disruption, I would feel like that's something that the study would want to take into consideration and have it be a part of the study, especially, if that's such an area of concern. And then again, if at the end of the year or on an annual basis, the permit needs to be renewed and the study finds that there's a better way to deal with this, then absolutely we would be open to discussing that. But I hate to use the word unfair because it seems like a childish word, but to impose a moratorium at this moment would seem very unfair, based on the planning that we've done and the conversations that have been had before. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Costones, please.
I was just maybe going to expand a little bit and say that the valet parking permit, and I haven't double-checked the code section to confirm this, but I'm assuming loading and unloading as well. Valet parking is under Chapter 1241. Loading and unloading is under 1248. The process, if you have an annual permit, the process for revoking that is like a full due process hearing before this commission. If you have the kind of lane closure permit that would be used as kind of a temporary permit, you have the staff being a little more nimble in that they're able to adjust those directly without having to come back before this commission. So that might be the significant difference in terms of being able to issue lane closure permits on a temporary basis that would function like temporary valet stands in a way, but would be subject to staff review and revocation as opposed to commission review and revocation within that 1 year period or moratorium period as appropriate. I think that might be the issue.
Okay. So, I'm kind of survey you if you all want to proceed with these individual requests before coming back to we'll call it moratorium request, or how y'all would like to proceed. I am open to suggestions. Yes, council member.
I think what I am struggling with, while I appreciate the presentation, I appreciate understanding the context, but, questions or information like Ms. Costones just gave, I am looking as a commissioner for a greater level of precision, a specific document that would say within this study period, if issued this on a temporary basis, then the revocation is this, revocation. I don't feel comfortable as a commissioner voting on something that we've just kind of spoken about. And a great and helpful presentation, but, those of us on council, I need a document that I am affirming, that I know that the public can see and understand. And so that's what I'm voting on, this process in this precise. I can't just conceptually kind of vote for something like this. It's not that I don't think we should consider it. It's not that I don't think we should implement it in some fashion. I just think we need a very specific and precise document that says this is how we will implement it. I think that needs to be put out into the public on our associated with our agenda, and then we vote on it at another meeting. It's not that I'm not supportive. I just don't think we've been sufficiently clear or precise with how it would be implemented. So I personally am not prepared. If I had to vote on it today, I would vote against it.
So, Ms. Costones, would there be any kind of document like that that could exist, or is it the case, since the Traffic and Parking Commission has the authority to grant or not grant these items?
Right. So absolutely.
Clarify the charter and kind of where we stand.
So absolutely, the charter gives the commission the authority to do various functions that are delegated to them by ordinance, and then chapters of the code that were adopted by ordinance give you specific authority over valet parking and loading and unloading zones. Those are, as I said, chapter 1241 and chapter 1248. So yes, like all of those types of permits are privileges. You know, the public right-of-way is the public right-of-way, and the public safety is always going to trump them. But in terms of due process, the process of if you give a permit under 1241 or 1248, and, you know, that is like at least kind of a little bit of an annual interest that they deserve some due process before it can be revoked. And the same is not necessarily true with lane closure permits, which I think would actually be authorized under Chapter 1320 of the Metropolitan Code. And like I said, those are more nimble. They're more done by staff, basically. And so I think the question would be whether we would be issuing a moratorium on permits under chapters 1241 and 1248 while still allowing permits under chapter 1320 to be issued to serve essentially the same purpose, but on a more temporary and, like, I don't want to say permanent because it's not permanent, but like a more sort of guaranteed basis, okay. At least for the year.
So, I mean, legally, from the charter, I mean, there's been no granting of a valet stand even when this building pulled a permit to start building. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct. So, I mean, unfortunately, or for whatever, this is not the first time that this body, things have been brought before us to approve based on the Planning Commission having approved something. I mean, you know, not to get into jurisdictional thing, but where there's this underlying assumption that there's going to be some kind of lane closure or a valet stand or some other kind of thing that this commission has to approve that's part of a planning thing, and then it's, one could say, dumped in our laps.
Oh, I would say it's very clear in the code that it is this commission that has the authority to grant those types of permits.
And I mean, no one wants to be obstructionist, but at the same time, you know, there seems to be some planning implications made by the Planning Commission about what other bodies are going to do.
This is true. I've seen this many times.
Right, because we've had long conversations in this commission about the impact of how planning was done, for example, 12th Avenue and its impact upon parking, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, in the ideal world, all this stuff would be integrated, but we don't live in an ideal world. So that's, so I mean, that provides some other context to kind of where we are with this. So thank you, Ms. Custodes. Okay. Is there, yes.
So I would like to add that, to my knowledge, I mean, it was news to me today that it actually had been discussed in the before the Planning Commission. So we did not know prior to today that it actually was. I'm not even sure if it actually went through the Planning Commission and was approved. can't say that for sure because I have not heard that.
Some illumination of this point.
Well,
please.
yeah.
I'm not, no one here is trying to throw any other body under some proverbial bus, but I just.
No, Chairman, I want to make sure that maybe I misspoke. I did not mean to imply that the Planning Commission approved a valet lane on First Avenue. That did not happen. So if I said something that led you to believe that, I apologize. That did not happen.
Commissioner Woods.
Thank you. I think it's very exciting about the new business coming here, but was it designed so that the valet people, is there no space within the parking garage of the Four Seasons to handle this so that you don't have to stop traffic? That people can pull in, this is the Four Seasons, valet their car, and take care of it internally.
Not on First Avenue. You'd have to go around the block to Second Avenue to be able to do that. There's no garage opening on First Avenue.
Why do we, again, is this just for the restaurant?
Yes, ma'am. This is just for the restaurant. The restaurant isn't owned by Four Seasons. It's just a condoed out part of that building.
So could they go around and go in the garage and then come to your restaurant?
Yes.
If they self-park.
Yes, they can.
You don't have a valet for the restaurant within the,
I do think it is worth also stating that during those conversations, they dedicated over an additional 8 feet of their own property to widen that pedestrian, the public right-of-way there.
Point of order, Chair. Are we discussing the moratorium, or are we discussing the Four Seasons application?
I think that Commissioner Woods had a question.
I appreciate, and I think this situation is illustrative of the moratorium question, and so I understand how they've become somewhat
conflated. Yes.
But I think the motion that's before us is regarding the moratorium. But
I don't think we have a motion yet.
Okay.
There's not been a motion made or seconded at the present time on the moratorium request. So,
may I make a motion?
You may make a motion.
Okay. I would move that we defer one meeting, requesting that staff prepare a precise plan of how this would be implemented with Ms. Costonis, whether it's 12.41, 12.48, that would contemplate, whether conditional or temporary within, what the charter allows. But again, a document, and then that would be what we are voting on rather than just kind of conceptually.
All right. So you have is it correct? You have a motion to defer for a month. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a first and a second. So is there further discussion of this motion?
Just to include chapter 13.20 as well because I believe that was referred to as well.
Other question.
Yes.
Are we deferring all the other items? Would that be a possibility on the other items?
I think we'll discuss the other items one at a time. And, that could always be a possibility.
I'm just curious about the staff recommendations, that we have in front of us from engineers and scientists.
Yes.
And I think, Chair Green, again, my motion includes that document, so that next time we have something specifically that we're voting on.
I understand.
Okay,
we need to make sure the minutes reflect that. Okay. So we have a motion to defer for a month with a request that there be specifications provided as to the moratorium. Is that an accurate summation of your motion? And we have a second. Okay. Any further discussion? We'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. We have a 1 month deferral on the moratorium. Okay. The next item on the agenda is we have two requests from Homeland, I'm going to assume they relate to General Services Administration. One is to authorize a new parking restriction around the perimeter of the Fred Thompson Federal Courthouse and Federal Building, no parking or standing anytime, with the tollway restrictions that start on the south side of Church Street at Polk Avenue to Rosa L. Parks, then it's on the east side of Rosa L. Parks to Commerce Street, then it's on the north side of Commerce Street to 7th Avenue North, then it's on the west side 7th Avenue North to Church Street, and then it's approximately 90 feet along the south side of Church Street, requested by U.S. General Services Administration. So I would assume this is the entire perimeter of the federal courthouse building?
That is correct.
Okay.
We do have someone representing.
Is there someone from GSA?
GSA here today.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion by any?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. The second item is to authorize a new passenger loading zone on the south side of Church Street between Polk Avenue and 7th Avenue North, approximately 90 feet in length, requested by the U.S. General Services Administration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Those two items are approved. The next item is the valet lane on 151 First Avenue South for the Rutledge at Four Seasons, requested by Metropolis.
I move to defer.
We have a motion to defer. Is there a second? We have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion of this item? Yes, council member.
So I guess my question comes in some of the issues that were raised earlier. From a time perspective, I know this is nearing completion, and so I guess I just wanted to inquire, I think part of the concern in deferring the pause or the moratorium was that we were potentially catching people who were in process that had certain expectations based on conversations with planning and otherwise. And so I would hope that I would not support the deferral motion, because I think my intent or the spirit of deferring the moratorium was that we could take up these things that are caught in between.
I think what would be helpful would be to hear from the parties as far as what's the timing of their request and when was their expectation of being able to start. Yeah. So, welcome back, please.
Thank you. Again, Catherine Bird with the Rutledge. As far as timeline goes, we plan on, again, tentatively with construction, things change, but tentatively opening on June 14th, correct? Monday the 13th? Monday the 13th. So we initially thought we were going to be on the April agenda to have this put in front of you guys, but I think that we missed the deadline by a day. So the time we would need to have this, we'll ideally have this approved at this meeting, and that was what we've been planning on since I did have the confirmation that we're on this agenda. If it were deferred, I would feel like the moratorium would kind of preempt, or even just the deferral of the moratorium would kind of preempt our application. Just the fact that, we wanted to discuss it later would affect this other specific and separate agenda item.
Yes,
and Mr. Sloan.
I know that I've already mentioned a lot of the things that led to this. This design of the building started in 2016. Included in the design of this building, I asked and they approved faucet outlets here underneath the Siegenthaler Bridge and drains so that they could help facilitate a farmer's market for downtown in that location. They increased the sidewalks.
Can we please speak to the valet?
Okay.
Standing question, please, sir.
And I am, because it was part of the back and forth about trying to make this a pedestrian-friendly environment and not putting lay-by lanes out in front of this building, and pressing as much of the vehicular traffic as we could, where there aren't conflict zones, over to 2nd Avenue, or what we'd hoped would be fewer.
Kurt Revelette, representing the Rutledge. One thing, Ms. Woods, I believe you mentioned earlier, was talking about with the valet and how that would potentially stop traffic there on front. But as you cross under the pedestrian bridge, it actually turns to 2 lanes headed back up north towards KVB. So what we are asking is keeping the valet there in the far right lane, and it would actually keep a lane of traffic open, so it would not block traffic moving up the street there.
I visited the site last week, and I'm still a little unclear there, because behind the barricades and fence, it was hard to tell. Are there or are there not any curb cuts on this sidewalk, please? I just wanted to be clear. It was hard to tell last week.
There are not.
Just want to be clear. Okay. They're not. Okay. And the lane pattern here is the traffic on the side where the valet is moving from the north side, moving south towards KVB. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It would be headed up towards their Demumbrium and KVB.
Okay. Any other comments from commissioners?
I'd like to hear from staff.
So, as before, when we talked about the pause on temporary, we want to pause on permanent parking. We would prefer to defer this until we complete our Conduct Downtown study because of the operational impacts of this. It is actually taking a lane of traffic out in front of this facility on First Avenue. So that operationally, that's what our concerns were.
Do you think a deferral of 1 month will make any difference to staff? Okay, thank you.
Yes. Commissioner, you had a question.
Well, I'm just looking to see if there might be the solution under 13.20 for a project that's this far along. Is it a major impact to traffic, or could it be, as someone mentioned earlier, that it could be
a temporary permit?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Right. Because there are temporary permits.
There are temporary permits.
Because the next traffic commission meeting is Monday, June 13th.
That's correct.
And when is it scheduled to open?
Monday.
That exact day.
So we're set to close on the space we were about purchasing, so we're set to close on June 1st, and then we're set to open June 13th, which is why we were on the meeting for today.
All right. Yes, council member.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask staff, when I look at kind of the Google Street View of this, I know there's kind of the construction fencing, but Mr. Sloan, they had spoken to doing a wider sidewalk because we want First Avenue really to respond more to the river and have cafe seating, and that's something we hear from the community that they definitely want downtown. How much, when they have their finished curb line, what is the right-of-way between the curb? I know we're north-south, we have 2 lanes, but what is the space there?
We don't have that currently. We can bring that to you. We don't have an answer to that.
So we have somebody asking for a valet lane, and we don't know the width.
If I could, Diana Alarcon, Director, are you asking for the right-of-way from curb to curb?
Yes.
Okay, so you have 2 lanes of traffic going southbound and 2 lanes of traffic going northbound. Those lanes are at 10 or 11 feet, do you know?
They're 11 feet.
11 feet, so you're looking at approximately 44 feet of curb to curb in the right of way there.
So 11 feet because that's our standard, or given that so much of downtown is constrained? I mean, sometimes they're 10, sometimes they're 9.5,
Yeah.
sometimes they're.
So ideally, we'd like for it to be 10, but in the downtown, we want at least one to be 11 to handle emergency and bus vehicles because of that. So the standard has been in the past 11, but in our complete street initiatives, we will be looking at compressing that down to 10.
Okay, so between the curb at this location,
it is approximately, it's either 40 feet or 44 feet.
Okay, 40 to 44.
Excuse me, from curb to curb.
Okay. And Chair Green, I mean, I guess what I sense coming up sometimes, and we've kind of seen this on the council side sometimes, is, and one of the reasons I think council supports a DOT, right, is a little bit of the disconnect between conversations that happened at planning and then what's going to happen in, plans review later at then Public Works. And then after that, the Traffic and Parking Commission, right, which historically, to your point, Commissioner, has been a little perfunctory. It's just sort of like, oh, well, all these things are all whatever, and now you got to approve the valet lane, So I think we're kind of walking that back a little bit in my view. But what I think, I do think we have a little bit of a process problem, all due respect to former Director Sloan, because I feel like when things are in review at planning, right? And you say to those folks, well, we don't want ingress egress on first and on second and. So, build your sidewalk wider. Great. That's good. I mean, that's good from a planning perspective. Pull your stuff over on second. Great. Consolidate your ingress and egress. That's good. But, you all make the suggestion, do your valet. That becomes a presumption through the process when it gets to Public Works, and then when it gets to us. So I feel like commissioners, we're moving in a direction of having better process. It's more clear what the expectations are along the way. Respectfully, I just feel like we're a little bit in this between place where people have operated under certain presumptions, which I know are technically not official, right? It's not official till it gets here and we approve the valet lane. But I would like us to consider something that is temporary. And then I would also like us to make sure from an NDOT perspective that we're not giving people the impression that, and or we just think about how this works entirely. So
I will respectfully disagree that we've been perfunctory. Again, I'm going to go back to my point. In many cases, I think this commission has been operating under situations that other departments or commissions have created, handed down to us, and the lack of integration. And we attempted to address these issues several years ago by starting to discuss valet stands and the whole curbside several years ago, and came up with a valet stand. So we have a motion that's a first and a second to defer this item. And my understanding is a temporary permit could be granted. Is that correct, Ms. Costonis?
That's correct.
Okay.
So even if we vote to defer, if there's a temporary permit?
That could be handled with
that staff. Could be handled for their opening day.
Okay. And I understand staff said makes no difference on what your recommendation is going to be. Then I'd like to withdraw my motion to defer and go ahead and vote.
Okay. What are you requesting that we vote on, please? I think
whether or not to grant a valet stand.
Okay. So
I'm just saying, rather than
there was a motion to defer,
right,
and there was a second. So we need to vote on that motion.
Or she can withdraw her motion.
Right. I moved to withdraw my motion because staff's recommendation after a deferral is not going to change.
Okay. We would still have a valet stand request sitting out here that has to be voted on. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I'm clear on what we're trying to move towards.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm with.
All right. So is there a motion to approve or deny the valet stand?
I make a motion to deny.
Okay, we have a motion to deny. Is there a second? Now, from a point of view of understanding, denial means it's wouldn't happen. Is that correct? What would be the process of coming back to the commission?
Let me just pull up Chapter 1241 real quick so I can
Don't mean to be
to answer that accurately. I'm trying to make sure that if the permit is denied for this year, they can still come back next year and ask for it.
So we don't need to say that we don't know. That's correct.
All right. So is there a second to the motion to deny? There is no second. Okay.
I do not see any reason why they could not come back next year.
There's no second to the motion. Is there another motion on this item?
Chair, I guess I would look to,
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess I would look to Ms. Costonis for some assistance with the motion, but I would like to move approval, but with some clarity around a temporary nature, or I don't know the appropriate way to.
Can we approve a temporary valet stand?
You all can't kind of alter what the code says because that's adopted by council by ordinance. So if we're doing it under Chapter 1241, we would have to follow the procedures set forth by Chapter 1241. If you do it under Chapter 1320, and again, you all don't even have to do that. Staff can do that. You can grant a temporary lane closure permit that would essentially function as a valet stand, but would be subject to staff's discretion.
Because we do have an agenda item that we have to act upon, okay? Because we have people who are petitioned to put it on, make sure that they met their criteria. So we had a motion to defer that was withdrawn. We had a motion to deny that did not get a second. So that leaves, is there a motion to approve? Okay. Yes, Commissioner.
I'm sorry, I'm just a little confused again. So are we back to approving the original motion?
The motion to defer was withdrawn.
Right.
The motion to deny did not get a second. So to me, the remaining option is motion to approve.
I make my own motion to defer.
Yes, you may make a motion to defer.
Is there a motion to defer while they make apply for a temporary permit?
So we have a motion. Is it
Second.
you have a second?
Motion.
Is there a all right. Yes, Mr. Wood, you're to ask a question.
We're trying hard to work I know everybody worked on this. So if we're doing this temporary, recommendation is still the same. Okay. And I would just like to go on record saying, we get recommendations from engineers and experts in this. Why does the planning commission talk to them? About what's going on? Because we're working with pedestrian safety here.
Okay, we're back on. So we have a motion to defer to the next meeting, and we have a second. All in favor?
This is still connected to the moratorium.
No, this is this valet stand request.
I understand, but the staff recommendation is connected to the moratorium, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. Okay.
So if we're not voting on the moratorium,
we voted to defer the moratorium for 30 days pending a more detailed analysis from staff on the request. So that item is disposed of. We have approved 2 items around the Fred Thompson Courthouse building. So now we're trying to consider the valet stand request by the Rutledge. And there's a motion to defer for 30 days till the next meeting.
with the option to
approve. Yeah, there's a deferral that comes back to us, and we have the option to either approve, deny, or another action.
But they have the option to do the temporary permit?
Yes.
Okay. Based on the staff recommendation?
Yes. They could still do a temporary.
To the moratorium?
Yes. Because the moratorium has not been approved yet.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we have first and a second on a deferral. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay. No. Okay. Let the record show there was one opposed. Okay. So that's a deferral. The next item is authorize a new loading zone at 1102 Grundy Street, requested by Penn's Mechanical. This is also in the zone, your moratorium zone area. Is that correct, Mr. Freeze?
That is correct.
Is there anyone here from Penn's Mechanical? Okay. Why don't you step forward, please, and discuss your request?
My name is Faith Barnes. I'm the AGM there at Penn's Mechanical. Well, right now we have currently a lot of construction. Grundy is torn up for the next several weeks. But what we're looking for is we get deliveries anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week, especially with all of our arcade games and pinball machines and alcohol, stuff like that. We don't have anywhere designated for the delivery drivers. So as of right now with the construction, sometimes they're parking 2-3 blocks away and having to hand truck everything. So before 4 p.m., we're just looking for a loading area in the front so we're able to get the delivery drivers there because we don't have a designated area.
Thank you. Okay. Staff comment, please.
So our recommendation is to defer to the completion of the Connect Downtown Curb Study. It's the same recommendation as of previous, due to the compromising the operations on Grundy Street by allowing the loading zone.
Okay.
Chair.
Yes, council member.
Point of order. I guess my confusion is coming in that the staff recommendations are predicated on the downtown moratorium that this commission hadn't yet voted on. And so then that makes the staff recommendations, right? So, I mean, we don't...
Let me let staff speak to how they make their recommendations as opposed to us trying to assume.
So our recommendation would still be to defer, even if we didn't have a pause that was voted on by the Traffic and Parking Commission based on collection of data and study with the Connect Downtown.
Okay. All right. So is there a motion on this item?
I would like to make a motion that is similar to the motion we just made, which would be to defer this amendment to the next meeting and allow them to apply for a temporary permit.
Okay. All right. So question.
May I ask a question?
Wait, just wait
Okay.
1 minute. How does a temporary loading zone work, please? I know, because this is a loading zone request, not a valet zone request.
So in both cases, when we're talking about a temporary, what we're really talking about is a lane closure permit. Is that not, I'm deferring to Public Works folks.
That is
I believe
correct.
that's correct.
All right. We have a motion to defer with a granting of a temporary permit. Is that correct, Commissioner? Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
There's a second. Okay. We'll have further discussion. Yes, council member.
So I would support a motion to defer, and while I appreciate the intent, I do think the kind of the loading zone, valet zone, there is somewhat of a distinction there, and so I would support a deferral motion because I feel like but I don't know if this would be the best use of a temporary scenario. I mean, I would like to kind of make inquiries based on the staff analysis of the removal of the meters, the distance, some of the more practical information around which we make the decision. Whereas the staff recommendation, again, is, defer to completing the Connect Downtown. I think I would want to understand from staff, yes or no. I mean,
Okay.
All right, I would like to amend my motion.
Okay.
Just to a deferral for the next meeting.
So there's a motion to defer. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
We have a first and a second. Okay. Is there any further discussion of that motion? If not, we'll ask for the yeas and nays. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Item's been deferred. Okay. The last item on the agenda is new NDOT staff support announcement, please.
Do you want to mention the other two agenda items that were deferred at the request of Councilmember
yes, I'm
Sledge?
sorry. I scratched through those, so they went off. There were two items on our agenda. One was authorize a left turn configuration on eastbound Ackland Avenue at 12th Avenue South, removing 6 on-street parking spaces on the south side of Ackland requested by the Catalyst Design Group, and authorize a new parking restriction, no parking or standing anytime on the west side of 18th Avenue South from Edge Hill to Chet Atkins. Councilmember Sledge these are in his district, has asked for a deferral. So we need is that correct? Or did he ask for a removal of these items?
He requests for a deferral.
Okay. So is there a motion?
Move to defer.
Okay, we have a motion to defer item H and I. Is there a second?
Second.
We have first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. New NDOT staff support announcement.
Yes, Chairman. I would like to introduce Jason Olam, who is the Assistant Chief, took on the role as Assistant Chief Engineer over Transportation Systems Management with the Nashville DOT. I'd like Jason to come up here and introduce himself. He will be taking over as staff liaison on this Traffic and Parking Commission.
Welcome, Jason. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. I'm excited to be serving in this capacity.
Tell us give us a little bit of your background.
Background? Sorry.
Where are you from? Or
From here and there. I was at TDOT, state traffic engineer. Then my wife, she had a deployment in D.C., so I moved up there with a family for 2 years during COVID, which was very fun. And we're back now. So, yep, thank you.
Welcome aboard. We'll look forward to working with you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else?
That's all.
Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I know this took time. Appreciate it.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.